Hi everybody, I see a lot of you have turned in this assignment recently and I'm very happy to see that you guys are all getting along in that first unit. There are a few things I'd like to talk about with this assignment as I am grading several of them and I'm seeing several of the same mistakes, so I just want to discuss them so I'm clear, or you guys can let me know if there's anything that I wasn't very clear on too. So first off, this is the poem Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. You go here, this is page 14 in 103, and I'll take you to our textbook, technically. And I know it doesn't come up right away, I really do wish it did. You go to the table of contents though, you can find it pretty easily by just looking for where our poem is. Right there. Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, it's page 233. It's only that one page. It's a pretty short poem. There's 6 stanzas. Now the activity page here will go over each part of that with you. So I really want you to go over that too to make sure, if you haven't done this yet, just make sure you take out the poem and the assignment and do that together. So obviously you want to read it first. It'll go through this, check for understanding. It'll talk about the structure it's used. The night and day imagery is very important because several of the questions on the assignment will ask about this. So make sure you are doing these. Talks about alliteration, oxymoron, and similes. Poetic puns, there's some used in this. Literary devices and figures of speech. Oh, and then it goes into your grammar unit. So it really starts on page 29. This is the assignment, and it'll look like this. And you're just going to write in your answers. This is worth 50 points. It's about, there's 11 questions, so you can, about 5 points per one, just so you know. That's how kind of it's graded. So as you go through each stanza with this, you'll notice it'll kind of answer the questions that are on the page. So you really want to make sure you're just reading through this. So the first stanza, Thomas uses figurative language masterfully in his poem. Examine the first stanza of the poem before answering the questions. So we're talking about figurative language. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Figurative language here. The word death is never actually used in the poem, but the poet makes his topic clear in the first stanza. The close of day, the dying of the light. Those are figurative language to describe death. And that good night, that's another one too. So then you go back to your answer or your sheet and you begin to answer the questions. Now, I did mention before that you want to make sure to use part of the question in the answer. And the reason for that is for you to be very clear. So I've had some people answer number 1 in just one sentence, but I wasn't sure which part of the question they were answering. So things like that. I just want to be very clear in what part you're talking about. So for example, you would say, the words burn and rave suggest the image of. So that's obviously answering the first part of the question. And it also just helps you to focus to make sure that that's what you were addressing. So the images of burn and rave, what would that be talking about? That's something you want to be able to think about and come to a conclusion about. And then why should someone burn and rave at close of day? You would reply, someone should burn and rave at close of day because, and then fill it in with your answer. You should know what that means too. So if you're not quite sure yet, you want to go back and review this of what they're talking about, the figurative language. Review the poem once more to get you some ideas there, or even just ask me if you're not sure. I'm always there for that. And then go on to the second stanza. And here, of course, I don't know why it's so weirdly formatted here, but it's right here. The wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning. They do not go gentle into that good night. And this is talking about wise men, philosophers, technically, who don't fade gently into death. So here, number 3 is asking about that specifically. Though the wise men might know that it's time to die, the speaker says that they still fight death because their words had forked no lightning. So what does that mean? So here, you would say, their words had forked no lightning means. So why is it that these philosophers wouldn't want to die, these wise men? What is it that they want from their words? If their words forked no lightning, what is it that they would hope to have had would have happened? So that's what I'm asking for, what the question's asking for here is what result did they want from their words that didn't happen, and why is that? Why would that be a reason why they're fighting death? So whatever it was they were saying, maybe they wanted to change something and it didn't happen. Maybe they wanted to create something and it didn't happen. So that's kind of what you're looking at here is what is it these wise men would want at the time of their death? If their words had forked no lightning, what would they have wanted then? And then the next one is asking what images in the stanza. The images in the stanza are. Now I'm not asking here what images do you see? I'm asking what images does the poet use? So images meaning imagery. So there's dark here and lightning. So we see dark and lightning. So then you would just say then, excuse me, the images in the stanza are darkness and lightning, and light in the lightning. That's what that's asking for there. And then we go to the third stanza, pretty much doing the same thing. Now Thomas is referring to good men. So we've got the wise philosophers, and now we're talking about the good men, the religious or moral individuals who are also raging against the dying of the light. So you want to reread the stanza. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. So now we go back and answer 5 and 6. So these good people cry how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. What does this mean? And again, you don't want to say this means. You want to actually spell it out. So how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay means. And then tell me what you think that is. So you've got these people who are very moral, upstanding kind of citizens, and they have done these deeds. How bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. What does that mean then? What could have happened to their deeds? And what would they have wanted to happen with their deeds? Why is it that they would be fighting for that now near the end of their death? So that's what you want to think about here. And then, of course, what imagery do you see in the stanza? You would say, again, the images or imagery in this stanza. Oops. And go back and look at what kind of images we're talking about here. The brightness, dancing, a green bay, more light. Those are your images there. And then we go back to the fourth stanza. This one is talking about the wild men, the artists, the writers, and creative people of the world. And just like the philosophers and the moral religious men, they too stand fast against death. So you want to review stanza 4. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late, they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. So how might these people have sang the sun in flight and then grieved it? So you want to think about possibly what could these creative people, think about some of the creative people that are in the news, the musicians, the actors, artists of some sort. What is it that they tend to do with their life, besides being creative, of course, that they might be grieving about at the end? So that's what you're trying to answer. So how might these people have sung the sun in flight and then grieved it? So you would say the artistic, or the creative, he used the word creative. The creative people in this stanza have sang the sun in flight and then grieved it by. So what did these people do with their lives, and why would they be grieving that now? That's what you want to think about there. And then what imagery do you again see in this stanza? The imagery in this stanza is, we go back to look at it, you've got more sun in flight, so moving sun, and that's pretty much right there. And then going on to the 5th stanza. In this stanza, the poet uses a pun, oxymoron, and a simile, and here you can actually see where they are. So a pun, the grave men, it's a pun because grave means serious and mortal, and a grave is also where people are buried after death. So it's talking about people who are near death who may have not enjoyed life as much as they should have. And then the oxymoron, a blinding sight, which is eyes that cannot see, blind, or suddenly able to see clearly, which is an oxymoron. And then a simile, blaze like meteors. So if you look back on question 9, what images do you see in stanza 5? You're looking for things like grave men, blinding sights, blind eyes, blaze like meteors, light again. Those are the kind of images that he's talking about. Now the last stanza, 6th stanza here, is where he turns specifically to the person Thomas is writing the poem for, who is his father. So it's kind of a touching conclusion in that way. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you want to answer the last 2 questions here. Why do all these men not go gently into death? So again, you're going to be using, part of the question and the answer. So these men do not go gently into death because. And here you're going to look back at what you wrote for number 3, number 5, and number 7, because that is basically what your answers are going to be about. So it's not about men now. So some people have answered things like, well, unless they're family or their friends or their pets or something like that. That's not discussed in the poem. So you want to make sure you're focusing solely on what the poem is saying that these men are going to rage against. Why are they not willing to go into death very gently? So that's what you're focusing on in this poem specifically. And then what role do light and darkness play in the poem? I kind of already touched on the darkness meaning death part. So the light should be pretty easy to figure out considering what's the opposite of death. So you'll want to say the role of light and darkness are, and then explain as you go through that. So that's how I want this worksheet to be answered, and kind of a way to go through it with the unit as well. That's why it's there too, so it helps you out as you go along. If you guys have any questions about anything, just shoot me an email, message me on Google Hangouts, and I'll gladly help you out with that. So just again, let me know if you have any other questions about this assignment, and that's all. Thank you.